In today's video, I'm going to teach you how to master the race starts in F1 2025, covering the dry, intermediate and wet tyres across the game. Additionally, how to master the race starts on different tracks, because there are different grip levels per situation that you might face. With that being said, let's get into the first example of the video and straight into Silverstone. So here we are then on Silverstone, and we're going to be breaking down this video into multiple segments for you today. First of all, speaking about a normal flat surface like we have here at Silverstone Circuit, both with the dries, intermediates and wet tyres to be shown the optimal RPM range for all of those tyres and throttle approach to be maximising traction off the line. Then moving to other tracks that have an uphill and downhill starting platform, so you can learn how to be adapting your throttle approach to be maximising the grip in different situations around the F1 calendar. With that being said, first race start coming up here. You're looking for 11,600 on the dash in the middle of the screen, and when the lights go out, reduce the throttle by about 20% to reduce the wheel spin. As you can see, we get off to a flyer. Even had to avoid, I think that was Lawson or Hajar in the background there, going through a few race starts to really ingrain it and describe it in detail about how to maximize it. 11,600 on the dash. You're looking for reduce the throttle by about 20% as soon as the lights go out, and that is so you have high RPM, but then reduce the wheel spin off the start finish line and then build up gradually back to 100%. As soon as you feel like you can get to 100% power while also having the overtake button enabled, do it. Get to that overtake button ASAP. As you can see right now, just going through the example, of course, in the replay cam, as soon as we felt like the wheel spin would not happen anymore, we got straight away to that overtake button to be maximizing our straight line speed potential and getting up to speed ASAP. A thing that is really important, that is quite underrated in all honesty, is keeping your wheel completely straight off the line for as long as you can do it. If you notice, when we're behind Hajar here, what I try to do, even if he gets a bad start, I try to keep my wheel as straight as possible for as long as possible, so then I can be maximizing my straight line traction of the car. If I go into third person camera, as I'm trying to avoid the AI here, even if I'm turning at a low speed, you can see when we're turning, the weight transfer is moving around the rear tyres, and when we turn to the right, the weight goes to the left, and of course when we turn to the left, the weight goes to the right. So if you're able to keep your car completely in a straight line, that means both the rear tyres will have equal traction, and then you can be maximising your potential from there. If you are slightly turning, then one tyre will have more grip than the other, and that's where you can get snaps of oversteer from, and that is not ideal. Speaking about the differential, to be honest, it's not really making that much of a difference, if any difference, in the F1 game start. It's so granular that it's better just to have, in my opinion at least, the differential set up for the first turn to be maximising your grip potential there, and that's going to be on 100% on the differential setting. As a quick explanation for what the differential is doing, as we're already halfway around the track, oh my god, what the differential is doing, again, if we go to third person camera, when you have 100% on your differential, it means that it's forcing the rear tyres to spin at the same speed, at the same rate, whereas if you had 0% on the differential, i.e. 0, i.e. none, that means that the rear tyre can spin independently. The advantage of the rear tyre spinning independently is that each tyre then can find its own grip, but that means the car can become quite unpredictable, and it can become quite loose in many ways, and you start getting oversteer, and it starts to feel really unsettling off the race start also while driving around the track. If you have the differential to 100%, that means that both the rear tyres are forced to spin at the same rate, and this has the advantage that you know exactly what it's going to do with the car, because both of the rear tyres are forced to do the same thing, so it can induce a lot of confidence and be inducing a lot of ability to get back to the power in a really quick way due to the confidence gained. So now we're going to do a restart on 100% differential, and you're going to see no difference, in all honesty, between 100% differential and 30. It's so minuscule in the F1 game, it's better just to have your differential set up for the turn 1 and sector 1 grip of the car, off the start finish line, and you're going to see no difference, and it is just better. Then I can go into sector 1 of the race knowing that my on-throttle differential is set up correct. Cheers, Joel. Anyway, back to the point. You're going to see going into the first sector that the differential is set up for optimal performance, and you can go on from there. If I didn't run into the back of Stroll, it would have been a very nice sector 1, but we decided to visit Stroll's gearbox, and do you know what? Just for the comedy factor, that's being left in the video. So here we are on the intermediate, and much like the dry tyre, you're going to be 11,600 RPM, dropping 20% on the throttle, but just building up slower compared to the dry tyre. As you can see, we only got to full power in 4th gear, then went into our normal procedure of hitting cars and turn. I need to get better at turn 1, man. But anyway, we went into our normal procedure of then using the overtake button from 4th gear onwards, once we were confident the power delivery could handle it and we could get away with the traction. What we're going to do now is just run over that a few times. I've made contact with my teammate again, so we're going to run over that a few times on the grid, so then you can really start to see how I'm releasing the throttle, applying the throttle again to be maximizing traction. So again, release the throttle by about 20% after 11,600 RPM. This time I was too aggressive on the power and picked up a bit too much wheel spin, and then you can see we just went to the outside of the AI, but that's not relevant for this tutorial, and we're just going to go over that again because, to be honest, that wasn't perfect. It was a decent start, but it wasn't optimal, and we want to be speaking about perfection. 11,600 and lights go out, releasing the throttle a bit more than last time, and you can see the traction we picked up was phenomenal this time and was able to go all the way up through a few positions, even in the traction zone alone. One more time and then we'll move over to the wet tyre. Here we go then, 11,600 RPM on the dash, and it is going to be lights out and away we go. Release the throttle by about 20%, modulate the power up, and we have got a decent start. One thing I forgot to mention with the dry starts earlier is I always start in the medium ERS mode. If you're starting in none, then you won't have the power once you get away from the line, and if you're in a hot lap, I think you have too much power and is inefficient. For me, it's better to be a medium, and then I'm able to control the power, and then once I feel like I need the extra power from the overtake button, I can use it to be gaining momentum, speed, and potential. It is raining cats and dogs here at Silverstone, and much like the dries and much like the Inter, 100% differential, 1,600% on the throttle, 20% release, and you can see just building up the throttle percentage slower than before, and then we're able to activate the overtake button, avoid the AI unlike before, and that is how you do the restart on the wet compound tyres. Just going through the procedure a handful more times, you get to see it and really integrate yourself with the procedure that I'm doing, how I'm maximizing the traction. 11,600 RPM, lights out, and it is going to be reduce the throttle and then start building it up. Keep the wheels straight for as long as possible while avoiding the slow starting Ocon, and we have got the procedure done and dusted. Third time is a charm, and then we'll be moving on to another track downhill to be showing you how to do the race starts there. It's going to be 11,600 reduced by 20%. Keep the wheel straight for as long as possible. Ocon got a good start, so we can keep the wheel straighter, and then once we feel like the wheel spin has been alleviated and will not happen anymore, then we're able to activate the overtake button to be maximizing potential. We're going to be hitting a sick little drift here, and then we'll be moving on. Look at these AI trying to get their position, but we're coming in. Oh, that was sick! We didn't leave any space on the exit, but you know what? I think the stewards let me get away with that, just how cool that was. That being said, let's move on to Austria. So here we are on Austria reversed layout. The reason I picked the reverse layout is because what originally is the uphill braking for turn 1 is now the standing start for the reverse layout. Optimal to be testing out and practicing and showing you the example of how to be starting on a downhill basis in a Formula 1 game. So we're not going to be covering the intermediate and wet tyre within this segment because, as you've seen from the first segment on Silverstone, the technique is the same. You're just applying it slower and more gradually, and for the purpose of not making the video longer than it needs to be and trying not to waste your time, basically, we're just going to be focusing on the dry compound tyre for Austria, and then later on Brazil when we do the uphill segment as well. So As you can see, the downhill is quite aggressive, 11,600 RPM again, and what we're going to be doing is just reducing the throttle down that 20% and just being more gradual with building up, sort of halfway in between the dry and in the rain situation. The reason for that is, if we go back down to the start, if I bring my keyboard over here so that I can show you the third-person camera as well, basically, when you're going downhill, you get unloaded suspension, and that's basically just how gravity in physics is working, and the opposite is true when you're going uphill. You feel it like, even when driving in a car, right? So when you're driving uphill, the car struggles more. When you're going downhill, the car is more free and can be accelerating easier. So what is happening here also with suspension is when you're traveling uphill, the suspension gets compressed, and that means you get more grip effectively. But when you're traveling downhill, the suspension gets uncompressed and you struggle for grip and you get less grip because of this. This is why when you're going over very technical parts of circuits, i.e. parts that have slight elevation change going into the apex, it's easy to be losing control of the car because it's going uphill, gaining grip, going downhill, losing grip in different situations, and that's why it's quite difficult. i.e. Austria turn 3 on the normal layout in the end of sector 1. You're accelerating so fast into that corner, but you can brake so late for the apex because you're braking uphill, what means you have more braking ability and more grip in the car because you're going through an uphill trajectory, and that thus means you have better grip. Whereas if you think on the opposite side, if you're braking downhill, you actually have less grip. So what was a 100-meter board braking zone going uphill probably becomes about 130 meters, maybe even 150 meters in some situations, in some grip conditions when you're braking downhill. So depending on the severity of the hill that you're on, it can be altering the braking distance in a Formula 1 car, at least on the Formula 1 game, by up to 50 meters. So just take that in consideration, and that lesson also applies here when we're talking about the race start and how you need to be modulating the power. So again, the raw technique is very similar in the sense that you're going to 11,600 RPM. My apologies, got my words out eventually. Reducing the throttle by 20% and then modulating forward, but you're just doing it slower than if you was on a flat surface like Silverstone. You can see, reduce the throttle 20% and then just building up the power gradually as we hit the back of Stolt again. And that allows you to be getting away from the start-finish line in a very nice and efficient way, and then you're off on your way on lap 1 to be maximizing your potential. Now moving over to Brazil, as that has an uphill starting line. We've taken our jet and we've landed on the Brazilian GP starting line here. As you can already see, it is uphill with the run down to turn 1, and we're going to be looking to do the same procedure as before with 11,600 on the RPM, reduced by 20% on the throttle pedal as soon as the lights go out, and then more aggressively than Austria and or Silverstone, we're going to get back to 100% power. So RPM is correct, reduced by 20%, then build back up on the power. Like I said on the Austrian starting grid, because that we're going uphill here, we have more grip, and unlike on Austria, we were going downhill, what means we have less grip. And that is the pure difference. Because we're going to be traveling uphill immediately off the starting line, we can be more aggressive with the throttle pedal to be maximizing our traction demand and our straight line speed potential on the way down into turn 1. Going over that again, 11,600, reduced by 20%, and it is going to be lights out and away we go. Minimize any wheel spin initially, then maximize your power delivery straight after that, and we're able to get a good start and to be holding a nice momentum down into turn 1. So we've covered the flat surface with the dry tyres, intermediate and wet tyres, a downhill surface as well, and now just covered the uphill surface with the Brazilian GP. So my advice, keep the same procedure as you go throughout the whole grid on the Formula 1 game, but remember, different tyres and different tracks will have different grip available to you. So keep 11,600 RPM on your dash before the lights go out, reduced by 20% power universally across all conditions and all tracks, and then what you can do is start building the throttle back up, and that's the critical part of the starting procedure. How fast can you build the throttle back up to 100% and then get your overtake button enabled to be flying down into turn 1. So I really hope this tutorial has been helpful for you at home, and your race starts are going to get ever better on the F1 25 game. With that being said, let's head to the outro. So there we go, another tutorial done and dusted on the F1 2025 game. Race starts mastered. What tutorial would you like to see next? I have a lot of ideas and a lot of videos coming up, but I'll be very interested to hear what videos you would also like to see down in the comments down below. With that being said, I've been Brendan Lee. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Grazie ragazzi. Ciao ciao. Bye bye.